It's game time.
It's game time. Welcome back to the Real Estate Play-by-Play. I am Danielle Olbrantz. I am your mortgage broker expert with Clear to Close.
And I am Christy Martinelli, top realtor and producer here in Northern California who works for Coldwell Banker.
Awesome. So we are kind of breaking down the real estate buying, selling process. And so this podcast is designed to give a very step-by-step of the plays of the game.
Yep, exactly. We're going to give you the strategies and, as Danielle said, give you the play-by-plays to help you reach your real estate goals, to win and accomplish those goals.
Yes. So in our last episode, we talked about the players on the team. We talked about buyers, sellers, the real estate agent, the mortgage broker, title, escrow, appraisers, inspectors. There's a lot of people going on.
We assembled our team.
So now that we've assembled our team, what happens next?
Yep. Now we got to decide who we're going to put in, who's going to be our starting lineup, who we're going to put in. And we got to find the house. We go out as a realtor. I'm showing you homes. We're looking at properties. We're deciding what works for you and your needs. We're marking those check boxes, and then we find the property.
Right.
And now what? What's the next step?
Yes.
Right? Game time. What's the next step here?
At that point, they've already gone through the full pre-approval process.
Correct.
So, by the time you're out looking at properties, you've already turned in all of your documentation. You've gone through all of the numbers. You've crunched everything. You know what your budget looks like. You know what your max is. You know all of those things. Finding the property is the fun part, right? I mean, that's when you get to go out shopping. I love shopping.
Yeah, I love shopping too, right?
Shopping for houses is the best.
I like shopping, but I have to say, even more than shopping, I like getting my clients the house.
Yes.
And I think that's like the competitiveness
Oh,
of me.
yes.
It's like, okay, especially in a seller's market where you're a buyer and you're putting an offer in and there's 8 other offers. It's like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's get this house for our client.
Because that can otherwise be a very heart-wrenching experience, right?
Absolutely.
You fall in love with a home, you picture it as yours, and then to not get your offer accepted, that can hurt a little bit. It can sting.
It's such an emotional roller coaster sometimes for clients. And so one of the things I always tell clients in the beginning of the process is I'm going to make this as stressless as possible because, it's high stakes. It's a lot of money. It's a stressful situation. So it's our jobs to almost over communicate to make it as stressless as possible. I mean, when you're going out there and you're pitching a game and you're going through each batter and you're trying to work it, it's extremely emotional and there's a lot of emotions that go in. There's ups and there's downs, and it's the same thing with the real estate process. As your coaches, we are going to help you maintain your composure and help you maintain it to reach the end and win.
Right. And things can change so quickly, right?
So
on the mortgage side,
calling an audible, Danielle.
Yes, we need to be available for sure. And so interest rates change all the time, right? And so we're working very closely with our buyers to make sure they may have been pre-approved a week ago. They may have been pre-approved 6 months ago. And so we need to make sure that they have current information so that they can make decisions based on today's market.
Correct. And it's so important that you bring that up because the last 2 years have been a little bit of an anomaly in the fact that it's been a huge seller's market after coming off of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden in Northern California, we're hitting a more normal market.
Yeah.
And so how we're adjusting to that. And we just had, record breaking, how many rates they went up, 7 times or something like that?
Yeah. It was an interesting year.
It was an interesting year. So, just figuring out month over month or even week over week what the market's doing. That's our job to educate our clients and help our buyers. And so moving forward in this episode, we're going to tell you, our buyers, when it's game time and you find a house, what are you going to do? What are the next steps? So putting in the offer, and in order to put in an offer, you have to have a pre-approval letter. Now, technically, the contract defaults to getting the pre-approval letter in within 3 days.
Right.
But I have never done that, and no realtor should do that. You should be providing your pre-approval letter up front.
Yes.
Or if it's all cash, proof of funds, everything should be up front. And so that goes back to providing that pre-approval letter.
100%, right? And it's all a strategy, all of it.
All a strategy.
And so you don't want to go in with, just the standard kind of thing. Just because the contract says you can doesn't mean that that's the strategy to win. And we want to win, right? This is important to our clients to make sure that they get the home that they're really after. Yeah. So for the pre-approval letter, we don't send out a generic pre-approval letter at the beginning of the process. Like I said, they may have been pre-approved a week ago. They may have been pre-approved 6 months ago. So we want to update everything when they're looking to make an offer. We want it to be a fresh pre-approval letter. We want it to be dated, within the last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And we want it to be for the exact purchase price that they're looking at offering, right? If mm-hmm. somebody's making an offer for $900,000, you don't want to provide the seller a pre-approval that says $1 million. Why would you tell the seller you could pay more? Some people think that's a good thing, right? They think, I'll show them that I pre-approved for more. No, you want to make sure that they know that you can qualify for what you're offering, and that's it.
No, you're not going into a game and telling the opponent your play.
Yeah.
That you're going to run, right? No, of course not. You don't want to show your hand. So, absolutely. If you're going in at $1 million purchase price, then, you're going to put that pre-approval letter down for $1 million. But I will say, as a side note, another strategy that's important too is if you're going in at $1 million, go in at $1,005,000.
Yeah.
Always go a little bit over. Don't go in at round numbers. It's a pet peeve of mine because chances are if you're competing, somebody else is going in at that round number. So
that's interesting.
Go in a little bit off.
That's creative. I like that. I don't know that I'd heard that one from you before.
Just a little side note strategy.
But I like it. But, everything in real estate is all these tiny little, strategies and maneuvers that you can make that really set your offer aside, right? I mean, you want to stand out.
Yeah, you want to stand out. And I think it's important to, when assembling your team for, picking your realtor and picking your mortgage broker, that it's somebody that's going to be creative and that's going to help you stand out and get your offer accepted. It's easy in a buyer's market where you're not competing against anybody, but the second it turns into more of a normal market or a seller's market and you're having to compete, it's super important. And, even if I'm showing a home to somebody and they love the property and they're like, let's write an offer, I will pull out my handy dandy stack of cards that I keep in my car with envelopes, and I have them write a letter right there. Thank you for letting us view your property. We love it. We'll be in touch. And put it in, on their kitchen sink or put it in their bathroom so that that seller gets that card. And, from, Bill and Mary. And, when you go and write your offer, the seller knows,
they're top of mind.
Bill and Mary.
They remember Bill and Mary because they thought that was such a thoughtful, little takeaway. That's awesome.
So like you said, it's all about strategies, and every little step of the way, you're planting seeds and you're making strategies so that your clients are reaching your goals.
Yeah.
So we're writing up the offer,
right.
And I'm communicating with you. The mortgage broker and the realtor should be in constant communication.
Yes.
I write up the offer. The Danielle gets me over the pre-approval letter at the purchase price that we're going in with.
Right. And sometimes this is 10 o'clock at night kind of stuff. I know
Saturday
we've been emailing each other at midnight
Saturday
before
night.
And, but that's what it takes, right? We've got to get it in before the next offer comes in.
Right, exactly. And I think that's where both our competitiveness comes in and our hustle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So at 10 o'clock at night when we're writing the offer up for our clients who think we're crazy because they're like, is this normal? Do you normally work this late at night? We're doing a docu-sign?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. But getting that offer in also means I will a lot of times ask Danielle, hey, can you call the listing agent and put a good word in?
100%.
Maybe not 10 o'clock.
No, we won't call them. We'll wait till the next day for sure. Normal hours. We don't want to wake anybody up and anger them. But that is part of standard procedure for us, right? Anytime that we know that an offer is going in, we reach out to that listing agent just to make sure that they don't have any questions. We also want to point out, that they know who we are. Right? It's very important that you have a local, respectable team, on all sides. I know that you have an amazing reputation in our market. And so every other real estate agent knows who you are. You don't really have to introduce yourself very often, I'm sure. But hopefully I have a little bit of the same reputation on the mortgage side.
Absolutely.
And so, reaching out to that listing agent and just saying, hey, I just want to make sure one, that you got all of the information that you need from us, right? Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you think is going to, prevent us getting into contract on this transaction from a mortgage side? Is there anything that you need to see?
Right. Building that relationship, it's key in these situations that you're building the relationship. Not only is it important as the buyer to have a good relationship with your realtor and your mortgage broker, but it's also important as a realtor and a mortgage broker to have relationships with the people on the other team, the coaches on the other team, because, I'll tell you what, when I close a transaction, a lot of times I'll give a gift to the other agent. So if I have a buyer that's purchasing a house, I'm giving a gift to the listing agent, and it's like, well, why do you do that? Because that person is important.
Yes.
The next offer that I might make might be another property that they're listing, and they're going to be more apt to pick you or pick my clients to work with if I'm easy to work with, if you're easy to work with.
Right.
So relationships are key, and it's important to have good relationships all the way around. And as the mortgage broker, building that foundation with the listing agent and giving them a call is super important early on in the transaction. And it's a lot of times so I work with buyers and sellers, right? And on the listing side, I can say maybe 10% of the time a mortgage broker calls me and reaches out in regards to their buyer.
Such an easy small step. I don't understand why they wouldn't do it. I mean, but if you received 2 offers for a property that you were listing that were for the same price with the same timelines, everything else, one of them had a pre-approval letter that was dated a month ago from an online lender, out of state. I won't mention any names, but you know who I'm thinking of.
Right.
One of them was a pre-approval, from this out-of-state lender, and one of them was a local mortgage broker who you've worked with before, who gets the job done, who does a good job.
Who are you going to choose?
Yeah, who are you going to choose? If the offers are the same.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right? That's what it comes down to. It comes down to the reputation of the players involved. And same on the real estate side.
Yep.
You have 2 offers that are identical. You definitely are going to pick the real estate agent who will perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once you've, put your offer in and, knowing us, we got it accepted.
Knowing Christy, she got it accepted for sure.
What's the next steps? And, what are contingencies?
Yes.
That's one of the questions I get early on from buyers when we're writing up the contract. What are contingencies? And in Northern California, are important contingencies that whether you're putting in place or not putting in place are going to be loan contingency.
Yep.
Appraisal contingency, inspection contingencies, and if there's an HOA, there's HOA contingencies and prelim contingencies. So there's a lot of contingencies that you have options and timelines that you need to put down on an offer. And a lot of times your mortgage broker and your realtor are guiding you to let you know what those contingencies should be and how long they should be.
Yep. And I think we should probably even just define what a contingency is, right? So when you're writing an offer, you have these outs essentially of your contract. You have clauses that will allow you to exit the contract without obligation to move forward and without losing any deposit money. And so, your loan contingency, for example, you have a specified time period. I think the standard in California is about 17 days. That's what's kind of boilerplate in the contract. 17 days to get all of your loan stuff done and still cancel the contract without losing any deposit money. But oftentimes it takes faster than 17 days to win the deal, right? If you were a seller, would you want to necessarily wait 17 days to make sure that you had a real deal? So sometimes we have to move faster than that. And so that's one of the things that's really important, as we're writing offers, that we talk about those things. Like, what's it going to take on this transaction? I know at this point, you've probably already called the listing agent. You've already found out what's important to them, right?
Correct. And, one of the questions I get early on is when somebody is looking for a mortgage broker is, a misconception is, it's all about rate.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking for a mortgage broker who has the best rate because that's who I'm going to go with. And that's actually not the case. There's a lot of other factors that come into play, and not just, who you can trust, who's going to be the best teammate, the best coach on your team.
Yeah.
But it's also in terms of contingencies. What is their contingencies? What are their turn times? So, a lot of places, their turn times might be a close of escrow date of 45 days.
Right.
Well, that's not going to work. In
Right.
a multiple offer situation around here, that's not going to work. You're going to need somebody that can close that quicker. So it doesn't matter if you're getting a really good rate but they have to close in 45 days because you're not going to get your offer accepted.
And that's not to say that rate isn't important, right? But those are the things that a good mortgage broker will weigh out. Correct. So as mortgage brokers, I have access to dozens and dozens of different lenders. And so I can decide based on the individual transaction what's going to be most important to win the deal, right?
Yep.
Because I might have a lender that I can get the absolute best rate at, but if they're going to take 45 days and you're not going to win the contract, what does it matter? Right? Like it doesn't matter unless you win the deal. And so we balance all of those things out. We shop for the combination of interest rate, closing timeline, how fast the lender can move, things like that.
And while you're working on that side, I'm working on the other side, as you mentioned. I'm working with the listing agent and finding out, okay, how long, what's ideal for the seller? What is the seller looking for? Are they looking for a quick close? Do they need some rent back? People just assume that sellers want top dollar, but that's not always the case.
Right.
Of course, the seller wants top dollar,
yes.
But there's other factors that come into play. How quickly you close. Maybe they need more time to close. Maybe they need a month or two of rent back.
Right.
So all these things are really important as your realtor. We're working on that end as you're working on your end so that we can put together an offer that looks super appealing and is packaged really nice so that it makes the seller want to accept your offer.
Right. And specific to what that seller is looking for, right?
Correct.
Exactly. No two transactions are the same and no two sellers are looking for the same things.
No.
So we've talked about loan contingency a little bit. Appraisal contingency is the other side of the contract that, I handle. So the appraisers we have to order through the lender and they have to be approved by the lender. But we do work with certain appraisal management companies at a local level that we know we can trust. So we form those relationships ahead of time. And like, for example, in California, I work with an appraisal management company that will have a guaranteed 3-day turn time. So I know that I can order an appraisal with confidence that can be turned around quickly. Now, why is it important that you have it turned around quickly? Same thing, just like you don't want, a longer period of time that you can cancel without penalty for the loan. You want to make sure that you get that appraisal back and then it's not going to be a problem quickly. And then you're crossing those things off the list. So you're now telling the seller, okay, I've investigated the appraisal. The property is worth what we're, buying from an appraisal standpoint. That's no longer an objection.
Right, exactly. So we've covered loan, appraisal. Another popular contingency is inspection. And, we talked about a little bit about this in our first podcast, but just to touch upon it, how long is your inspection contingency going to be? If you're competing as a buyer and there's multiple offers, you got to look at that with your realtor and see, do I need to go in and inspect this property? Right. Has the seller provided enough inspections and told us enough about the house? Maybe it's a trust sale and there is no inspections. Okay, then we got to figure out what inspections we're going to do. And as a realtor, another strategy is make those inspection appointments before you even submit the offer. Ooh. I've had situations where we have a offer date of next week. The listing agent's looking at offers and it's like, okay, they're looking at offers on Wednesday and we made our inspections for Thursday. Oh. So they know they can get it a wide rate. Or even a step further is have your own contractor, as long as the listing agent is okay with this, have your own contractor go in ahead of time and inspect the property so you can go in with no inspection contingencies. There's definitely different strategies and things you can do by working with your realtor to figure out what is going to make your offer look most appealing and have you comfortable with purchasing this property so that you know what you're buying.
Yeah. It's an assessment of risk all the way around, right?
Yeah.
And same goes when you're looking to waive a contingency, right? Because obviously a lot of times having a short contingency is more desirable, but sometimes we're able to waive that contingency completely. So one of the reasons that we do so much work up front on the pre-approval side is there are some situations where we've already had the file completely underwritten. We don't need a loan contingency. we feel so comfortable about our pre-approval that we might be able to waive that contingency. And so that's something that we balance out depending on whether it's needed, depending on whether the customer is a good fit, all the aspects of the pre-approval and whether that will work for them. But that's another strategy that we can sometimes use. And same with the appraisal, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we can get an appraisal waiver and we can actually run that analysis ahead of time. So before we even get into contract, we'll know whether we're going to get an appraisal waiver, and then we might be able to waive that appraisal contingency.
Yeah,
just another tool.
Totally. And, again, just stressing the importance of the relationship. The realtor through this process is working with the listing agent and trying to figure out, what the seller wants, what's going to be okay with the buyer. And then once you submit the offer, you might get a counter.
Right.
And you might have to go back and forth, and maybe they counter you at a higher purchase price. And then I'm working again with Danielle to say, hey, listen, they're countering us. We're going up in price. Can you get me a new pre-approval letter?
Yep.
It's a constant back and forth until you get your offer accepted.
It's fun though.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's absolutely fun.
It's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together to win. I love it. I totally love it.
I think that's why we work so well together.
I know. Especially the midnight pre-approvals. Those are fun. I do enjoy them.
And I think one of the best calls that I get to make personally is to my clients to say, your offer got accepted.
Yeah.
Because that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's like telling your team, like showing your team, like getting a touchdown.
Yeah.
Or throwing a no-hitter or something.
On my end, that's when the real fun begins. And
right.
So we dig in at that point. That's when we have a very tight timeline. We'll talk about that in the next episode. But there's nothing better than, the excitement of somebody who's hopeful about buying their first home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the takeaway is, once you've assembled your team and you found your property and you're making that offer, it's super important as a buyer to be working closely with your mortgage broker and your realtor to come up with all these different strategies to put together the best one on your team so that you can reach your real estate goal and get your offer accepted. And I think, as we've mentioned today, there's a lot of different strategies. Hopefully we've given you some.
Yeah. Not all. We're keeping some of those to ourselves.
Can't give away all of our secrets, but we've given you, a few different strategies to work with.
Yes.
And help you reach your real estate goal as well.
Yep. Absolutely. So next episode, we'll dig even deeper into the next steps of buying, selling a home. I think we're going to talk about seller strategy, right? Game
Correct.
time for sellers.
Yep. So buyer strategy, we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we will touch upon the seller strategy of game time next episode.
Yeah. We'll tune in then.
So real estate play-by-play.
Cheers.